Imagine this for a second. You are standing in a fog-drenched alleyway, cobblestones slick with rain and who knows what else. Right.
Probably nothing good in Boulder's Gate.
Exactly. Nothing good. You're a highly paid, highly lethal mercenary, and you've just been ambushed by a squad of heavily armed monster hunters.
A terrifying scenario.
Right. But you fought them off. You won. The leader of these hunters is on her knees, weapons dropped, hands raised in, universal surrender. You breathe a sigh of relief.
Because it's over.
Because it's over. And then the ultra-wealthy VIP you were hired to protect, the one paying your bills, casually walks up to the surrendered prisoner, unhinges her jaw, and rips the prisoner's throat out.
Oh, man.
I mean, what do? Do you draw your sword on your own boss? Do you break your contract, risk your life, shatter your whole team just to uphold the rules of engagement?
It is such a wild ethical nightmare.
It really is. So welcome to a brand new deep dive. We are inviting you to step out of the rain, pull your cloak tight, and join us in the shadows of the high city.
It's a question that completely breaks the standard heroic narrative, honestly. We have a really fascinating stack of sources today.
Yeah, we do.
We are looking at a very detailed set of campaign notes tracking the events of a specific, incredibly tense Dungeons & Dragons adventure. This is chronicling Session 17, Blood on the Dance Card Part 1.
Such a great title, by the way.
It's fantastic. So our mission today is to unpack a truly chaotic evening of high society maneuvering and just, street-level brutality.
Yeah.
We're going to examine how a party's moral compasses can violently clash, how their group chemistry survives the ultimate stress test, and what happens when the lines between your employer, your allies, and your enemies blur beyond all recognition.
To really get you into the mindset of these characters, we kind of have to lay out the stakes of the board first.
Right. The setup is crucial here.
Yeah, the party at the center of this narrative is bound by an infernal contract. And, this isn't a handshake agreement in a tavern.
No, not at all.
It is a magically binding document. Their current obligation is an escort mission. They just have to safely deliver the imperious Lady Violet to a grand Patriot Ball hosted at the Silver Shield Manor.
Sounds simple enough on paper.
On paper, sure. But Lady Violet is the inheritor of the incredibly wealthy Tsar estate. And she is also, crucially, a confirmed blood-drinking vampire.
And the motivation for this contract is entirely personal for the party.
Right.
They aren't doing this for, a bag of gold or political favor.
Right.
This escort mission is the direct payment for a dark, underground ritual. A ritual that Lady Violet orchestrated to actually save the life of the party's wizard, an elven woman named Valessa.
Which is a huge deal.
It is. Valessa was dying from an infernal parasite. But the cure that Violet provided didn't just fix the problem. It left Valessa fundamentally and irreversibly changed in ways that really threatened to unravel her entirely.
Let's really dig into the mechanics of this transformation because honestly, the physical changes are horrifying.
They're gruesome.
Valessa was infected with this terrifying entity described as a fiery hell wasp. It's a literal devilish parasite gestating in her gut.
Like something out of a sci-fi horror movie.
Exactly like that. To purge this thing, Valessa had to endure a ritual invoking the archdevil Mephistopheles.
Which is never a name you want involved in your medical care.
No, absolutely not. But the ritual didn't extract the parasite. It didn't, pull it out of her. It forced her body to absorb it entirely.
Right.
The magic broke the entity down and fused its infernal essence into her bloodstream, her marrow, her very DNA. The resulting metamorphosis turned her from a drow into a dhampir, a half-vampire.
The biological reality of this is just staggering. We really have to look at what Valessa lost to gain her life here.
Yeah, let's talk about the prosthetics.
Right, so prior to this, Valessa utilized these elegant, finely crafted silver mechanical prosthetics for her left arm and left leg. She lost her original limbs centuries ago while escaping the Underdark.
Wow, centuries ago.
Yeah, she's lived with them a long time. But the dhampir transformation, fueled by this dark, regenerative magic, it hit a horrific biological reset button.
Oh, God.
Her organic flesh and bone violently regrew. The campaign notes describe the new organic limbs literally pushing those beautiful metal prosthetics right off her stumps.
Okay, now, I have to push back just a little bit here, looking at this from the outside.
Okay, sure.
We are talking about a high magic fantasy setting. Isn't getting your organic limbs back considered the ultimate miracle?
Usually yes.
Right. People in this world pay high-level clerics absolute fortunes for regenerative magic, like the regenerate spell. From a purely objective standpoint, she was cured of a fatal chest-bursting parasite, and she got her actual flesh and blood arm and leg back.
It seems like a win.
Yeah, I can easily see someone arguing that this is a massive miraculous win.
It is a logical argument if we treat the body merely as a machine needing repair. But trauma defies that kind of mechanical logic. We have to consider the profound psychological concept of bodily agency. Those prosthetics were not a burden to Valessa.
They were a choice.
Exactly, they were a choice. They were a visible daily badge of her survival, her hard-won independence, and her craft.
Right, she actually made them herself, didn't she?
She did. She spent a century on the surface adapting to them. She became a master artisan, crafting resexon, which is a specific, highly complex type of drow metalwork, to make prosthetics not just for herself, but for others.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is. She was granting them the freedom of movement that she had to fight and bleed for. She cultivated a completely new sovereign identity around that artistry.
And then it's just gone.
Right, the regrown limbs were forced upon her by a dark infernal ritual. She didn't earn them, she suffered them. To have her body forcefully hit reset like that is a profound violation of the self she painstakingly built.
Oh, wow. Okay, it's actually clicking for me now. Yeah, think about it like this. Imagine you undergo a highly experimental, life-saving surgery to remove a terminal brain tumor.
Okay, I'm with you.
The surgery works, you live, you have your whole life ahead of you. But the bizarre, permanent side effect of the medication alters your facial bone structure to look exactly like the face of your worst childhood bully.
Oh, that is a visceral image.
Right. The person who tormented you every single day. So every single time you look in the mirror for the rest of your life, you don't see the strong person who survived the illness. You just see the monster who hurt you.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. And the mirror is a very literal problem for Valessa now.
Oh, because of her eyes?
Yes, the notes mention her imp companion, Quilbit, unhelpfully forcing her to look at her reflection, and what she sees is devastating.
What happened to them?
Well, her eyes, which were this unique, striking amethyst color that she loved, have reverted to the vivid, glowing red of her former enslavement under the spider goddess Loth.
Oh, that is so tragic.
It is. She looks exactly like the high priestesses of Menzoberranzan, the cruel, subterranean city she risked everything to escape. So like your analogy, she physically resembles her abusers now.
And it's not just cosmetic either. I mean, the Dhampir physiology brings an actual biological imperative with it.
The bloodlust.
Yes. She now has a literal thirst for human blood. She is suddenly tethered to the darkness she tried to outrun, merely packaged in a new form. She's a predator now.
Exactly. The psychological toll of realizing your body is demanding the very violence you abhor is immense. And this incredible personal crisis, this deep existential dread, is the backdrop for what is happening at home.
Right, because life doesn't stop just because you're having an identity crisis.
It really doesn't.
So true. Before they even step foot out the door to face the monsters of Baldur's Gate, they kind of have to deal with the monsters in their own living room.
The wards.
Yeah, the party is currently living in the Eomain estate, and they have taken on these newly adopted teenage wards, Nicene, Rusora, and Kaela. Now, these are not your average teenagers sneaking out to go to a tavern.
Not at all.
Nicene and Rusora are the surviving daughters of a Bilist murder cult that the party dismantled.
We really need to contextualize what it means to be raised by a Bilist cult.
Please do, because it sounds intense.
It is. Bile is the lord of murder.
Hmm.
So these girls were raised in an environment where violence wasn't just normalized, it was sanctified.
Wow.
They have severe magical trauma, but they also possess immense, untrained, arcane talent. And as the party is frantically trying to prepare for this high-stakes, dangerous social event at the Silver Shield Manor, the girls are desperately trying to convince the adults to let them tag along.
The ultimate teenage fear of missing out, but, armed with deadly magic.
A terrible combination.
Right. So when the party's tabaxi barbarian, Vagvertrir, who, by the way, has really stepped into this role as the protective, fiercely maternal figure of the group, when she tells him absolutely not, the girls don't just sulk.
They escalate.
Oh, they escalate. They decide to demonstrate exactly why they are capable of handling themselves. They use their growing magic to shapeshift into perfect physical likenesses of Valessa and Ceres, the party's paladin.
It is a stunning display of illusion magic. And Rusora, seemingly just to add an exclamation point to the argument and prove she isn't intimidated by the dangers of the world, summons a literal devilish imp out of thin air right there in the foyer of the estate.
Just casually summoning a creature of the Nine Hills into the hallway because you're grounded.
That's so funny.
It is so chaotic. But what stands out to you about how the party handles this? Because they don't draw weapons, they don't cast banishment spells or anything.
No, they parent. And that is a crucial observation about their group chemistry. Despite the lethal skills every member of this party possesses, they default to de-escalation and boundaries when it comes to the girls.
That's really sweet, actually.
It is. Celeste is genuinely impressed by the illusion work, the craftsmanship of the spell. But she holds firm, she doesn't yell, she educates.
What does she tell them?
She warns the girls that this patriarch ball isn't just a party with fancy dresses. It is a highly probable target for the Gur, a faction of monster hunters who will not hesitate to kill anyone, even children, if they are associated with Lady Violet.
Right, because of the vampire connection. It's this beautiful, messy, found family dynamic. And their ultimate solution for keeping the kids occupied is arguably the funniest moment in the campaign notes.
Oh, I love this part.
They firmly redirect the girls' rebellious energy by telling them to go pester their resident house guest for the evening. And who is this house guest?
Lysandra.
Lysandra. A 281-year-old resurrected woman who happens to be the chosen of Jurgal, the ancient fatalistic scribe of the dead.
Just a casual house guest.
Right. They literally send these magically volatile teenagers off to get necromancy lessons just to keep them out of trouble.
It is a brilliant, absurd deflection. The teenagers scamper off with suspicious enthusiasm to learn about the magic of the grave from a demigod, and the party finally gets to leave the house.
Thank goodness.
But we must recognize the narrative purpose of this domestic interlude. It is the calm before the storm.
Setting a baseline.
Exactly. It demonstrates that as a unit, they can manage internal crises. They handle the minor rebellion of magical teenagers with unified authority and grace. It sets a baseline of cohesion that makes the impending fracture so much more devastating.
Because they have no idea what's coming.
No. They are completely unprepared for the catastrophic rebellion that is about to happen among themselves.
And that unity evaporates the moment they step out into the foggy streets of the high city.
The atmosphere completely shifts.
The atmosphere here is thick. They meet up with Lady Violet at the gates of the Tsar Palace. Cirrus, who is a noble genie paladin originally from Kalimshan, takes Violet's hand.
Right, acting as her official escort.
Yeah, her official formal escort for the evening. They set out through the dark, winding alleys, the cobblestones slick with rain. And almost immediately, Vagmeritor, utilizing her heightened tabaxi feline senses, hears the subtle, distinct clatter of roof tiles shifting above them.
The trap is sprung. They are surrounded by the Gur. Now, we must understand who the Gur are in the ecology of Baldur's Gate and the wider Sword Coast.
They aren't just random thugs, right?
Not at all. They are a specialized, often nomadic human ethnic group who view hunting creatures of the night, specifically vampires and their thralls, as a sacred absolute mandate.
So they take this very seriously.
Well, they are zealots. They're not merely mercenaries. They are led in this ambush by a seasoned hunter named Saria Redknife Galer Galen.
Such a cool name. When the ambush hits, the combat dynamics immediately paint a vivid picture of who these characters are at their core.
How so?
Well, Vagfriders doesn't hesitate. She goes straight into a barbarian rage, utilizing pure, terrifying brute force. She is leaping over tall, wrought iron fences, closing the distance to the attackers with predatory speed.
Incredible power.
But Valessa, who is still grappling with her new Dhampir physiology, doesn't bother climbing or leaping. She simply walks straight up the vertical brick wall of the alley to confront a hidden archer on the roof.
Let's focus on the mechanics of that spider climb, because it perfectly illustrates her metamorphosis.
Yeah, contrast that with the metal limbs.
Right before, with her silver prosthetics, her movements, while graceful, were defined by weight and mechanics. Now, the Dhampir physiology fundamentally rewrites the laws of gravity for her.
Wow.
She isn't hauling herself up. She's casually defying physics, walking up a sheer surface as naturally as one walks across a floor. It is an unnatural, chilling grace that contrasts sharply with Vagfir's explosive power.
It's such a cinematic moment, but the real subversion of the standard fantasy encounter happens when the Gur leader, Saria, steps forward from the shadows.
She doesn't just attack, does she?
No, she doesn't just attack wildly. She addresses Lady Violet directly, but she makes a point to speak to Cirrus, the paladin, and the party's warlock, Santal. Sirius states clearly that she has no quarrel with the bodyguards.
Giving them an out.
Yeah. Her target is only the vampire. And she reveals her motivation. Khazad-dûr, the former tyrannical head of Violet's estate, brutally murdered Suria's brother. She views Violet not just as an employer, but as the living, breathing continuation of Khazad-dûr's monstrous legacy.
Suri is framing this not as an assassination, but as an execution. She is laying out her righteous mandate. She begins to deliver the classic dramatic monologue explaining her trauma, her duty, and why she must cleanse the city of this undead blight.
And this is where it gets so good.
Yes, Santal, the tiefling celestial warlock, simply does not allow her to finish.
It's amazing. Mid-sentence, while Surya is pouring her heart out about her dead brother and her sacred duty, Santal just raises a hand and blasts her with crackling, blinding beams of eldritch energy.
This is brutal.
Just shuts the whole monologue down with extreme prejudice.
To understand why Santal does this, we have to deeply analyze their background. Santal is not a typical swashbuckling adventurer.
You have a day job, right?
They did, yes. They are a former civics clerk. They spent their life working in a bureaucratic office in Baldur's Gate, dealing with ledgers, labor disputes, zoning laws, and city infrastructure.
That is hilarious.
Their entire worldview is constructed around competency, rules, efficiency, and contractual obligation. Even their magic is bound by a strict celestial pact.
I love this character concept so much. So to Santal, this dramatic posturing by the Gore leader is just an incredibly inefficient, annoying waste of time.
Precisely.
They have a legally binding, wax-sealed, notarized contract to escort Lady Violet to a party. Surya is essentially an unauthorized obstacle holding up their commute.
Exactly.
Santal is basically communicating through Eldritch Blast, I do not care about your tragic backstory, you are violating city ordinance, you are disrupting the peace, and you are breaching my contract.
It strips away all the romanticism of the classic fantasy encounter. It reduces a blood feud to a bureaucratic annoyance. But before we move into the chaos of the fight, put yourself in Suria's perspective for a moment. Think about what the Gura actually see when they look down into that alleyway.
Oh, this is the best part. From the Gur's point of view, the party members are unequivocally the villains of this story.
Absolutely.
Think about it. Surya is a grieving sister trying to rid the world of a literal blood-drinking undead monster. She finally corners the vampire. And who steps up to defend the monster?
A terrifying lineup.
Yeah. A raging giant catwoman covered in blood. A warlock hurling dark hexing curses. A paladin who has seemingly forsaken the light to serve the dark, and a wall-walking, unnatural half-vampire with glowing, demonic red eyes.
It's basically a villain squad.
To the Gur, the party looks exactly like a squad of elite, corrupted mercenaries working for a dark lord. They're the bad guys.
It is a masterclass in subjective framing. The party feels entirely justified because they are fulfilling a contract that saved their friend's life. The Gur feel entirely justified by their profound trauma and their sacred generational duty to protect the living.
There's no compromise.
No, there's no moral middle ground to be found here. And so negotiations fail before they even begin, and the alleyway erupts into a violent skirmish.
And the Gur are losing. They are losing badly. Valessa triggers her blade song, which is this ancient elven martial art that blends magic and swordplay.
Very elegant.
She is doing this beautiful, deadly, sweeping dance across the rooftops, cutting the hunters down with radiant strikes. Vinfrier is just tearing through their front line. Santal drops a debilitating hex on Surya, ruining her agility, and just keeps hammering her with blasts.
Total overwhelming force.
Finally, the realization sets in for Surya. She is outmatched, her squad is broken, she drops her glaive, she falls to her knees, she raises her hands, she yields.
This moment of yielding is the critical hinge upon which the entire session, and perhaps the party's entire moral foundation, pivots. Because in the language of combat, across almost all civilized and even uncivilized cultures, surrender is the universal sign that the battle is over.
Right.
The threat is neutralized.
Right. If someone surrenders, you take them prisoner, you ask questions, you don't just keep fighting.
Normal people don't, anyway.
Exactly. But Lady Violet is a vampire, and vampires do not play by the heroic rules of engagement. Violet completely ignores Surya's surrender. She scales the wall with this terrifying, unnatural speed, grapples the yielding, defenseless hunter, and sinks her fangs directly into Surya's neck to execute her on the spot.
We must dwell on the visceral reality of this moment.
Mm.
It is not just a tactical decision. It is an act of predatory indulgence. Violet is feeding on a helpless opponent.
It's sickening.
And this action brings the party to an absolute breaking point, because Cirrus, the paladin, had explicitly warned everyone before this fight even began.
She laid it all out.
She did. She laid out her terms clearly. She would not tolerate the execution of a surrendered prisoner. For Cirrus, the rules of engagement are sacred. They are the only things separating warriors from monsters.
And Cirrus is a woman of her word. The exact second Violet's fangs pierce Siria's skin, Cirrus turns her divine blade on her own employer.
Without hesitation.
She declares Lady Violet under arrest for murder, and she doesn't just tap her on the shoulder, she hits her with a divine smite.
Now, a divine smite is not merely a magical attack. It is the channeling of pure, righteous conviction into physical force.
Picture the sensory overload of this in a dark, foggy alleyway. Violet is draining the life from the hunter, and suddenly a blinding, deafening eruption of holy radiant energy explodes directly into the back of the woman they were hired to protect.
Just massive damage.
It illuminates the entire street, and in that flash of light, the party instantly fractures. Because Siantal, seeing Cirrus attack their client, immediately transfers their Dark Warlock hex from the Gur Hunter onto Cirrus.
Oh, wow.
Siantal fires an eldritch blast at their own ally.
We must dissect this philosophical civil war, because it's the emotional core of this deep dive. We're witnessing a violent collision of two fundamentally opposed ethical frameworks.
Let's get into it.
Let's look at Cirrus first. Cirrus operates on strict Kantian deontological ethics.
Deontology.
Right. In moral philosophy, deontology is the normative ethical position that judges the morality of an action based on rules and duties. The action itself is what matters, completely regardless of the consequences.
Okay.
For Cirrus, executing a surrendered foe is inherently universally wrong. Therefore, it must be punished and stopped, even if the perpetrator is the person paying them, and even if it jeopardizes their mission.
And Siantal operates on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Siantal represents absolute contractual pragmatism. Remember, Siantal literally notarized the physical contract with Violet using a wax seal.
The civics clerk coming out.
Exactly. To Siantal, they signed a legally binding document to protect this woman's life and ensure her arrival at the ball. Furthermore, Violet was acting against an assassin who had just tried to kill her minutes prior.
That's a fair point.
In Siantal's rigidly bureaucratic eyes, the surrender doesn't magically negate the initial attempted murder, and the written contract supersedes any personal feelings of honor or mercy.
Exactly. Santal attacks Cirrus not out of malice, but to uphold the bargain, to maintain order as they define it. It is a stunning escalation. But I want to pose a question to you, analyzing Cirrus's decision here.
Go ahead.
By adhering so rigidly to her paladin code, to her deontology, didn't she put absolutely everything at risk?
Yes. I have to actively challenge Cirrus's logic here. I understand the honor code, I really do. It's very noble to protect the defenseless. But by attacking the VIP they were hired to protect, Cirrus put the entire party's reputation in the mud.
Ruined it, potentially.
Yeah, mercenaries who attack their clients don't get hired again. She risked bringing the Baldur's Gate City Watch down on all of them for fighting in the streets. And worst of all, she put Valessa's cure in jeopardy.
That's the biggest issue.
Right. If Violet dies, or if she voids the contract because her bodyguards assaulted her, what happens to the magic keeping Valessa alive? It's incredibly reckless.
It perfectly illustrates the danger of absolute moral rigidity in a highly complex, chaotic world. There's a Latin phrase, fiat justitiae ruat caelum. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
Wow, that fits perfectly.
Cirrus is willing to let the heavens fall on her friends to keep her oath intact.
Let me give you an analogy to show how crazy this looks from the outside.
I love your analogies.
Imagine you are a high-end, highly paid bodyguard. You are hired to protect a controversial, widely disliked CEO. You are walking down the street, and a group of armed hitmen attacks your client.
Okay, standard bodyguard stuff.
You bravely fight them off, you disarm the assassins, you do your job perfectly. But in the chaos of the aftermath, your client panics and jaywalks across a busy intersection to get away.
Oh, no.
And you, the bodyguard, pull out your weapon and shoot your own client in the leg because jaywalking is breaking the law.
That is absurd.
It's like, okay, noble in a vacuum, you upheld the traffic laws, but you are a complete disaster of a bodyguard in practice.
That analogy perfectly encapsulates Santal's profound frustration in that moment. And the physical reality of the scene reflects this complete breakdown of order.
What happens next?
Violet hisses, drops the bleeding hunter, and uses her preternatural speed to scale the wall to the safety of a high rooftop, fleeing her own protectors.
Oh, man.
Cirrus, refusing to let the murderer escape, summons a magical cape and takes to the sky, flying 90 feet straight up into the fog to pursue her. Siantal is firing eldritch blasts from the ground trying to suppress the paladin. Wagenfridge and Valessa are caught in the middle. It is a total catastrophic collapse of group cohesion.
So how on earth did they resolve this? Because they can't just TPK like total party kill each other in an alleyway over a philosophical debate.
The campaign would just be over.
Right. The resolution comes from Santal, who pulls off one of the most shocking, coldly pragmatic moves imaginable in Dungeons & Dragons.
Santal, operating with that civics clerk mentality, analyzes the root cause of the conflict. Why is Cirrus attacking Violet?
Because she murdered the hunter.
Exactly. Because Violet murdered Syria. The catalyst for the Paladin's wrath is the corpse. The death is the crime. So Siantal walks over to the dead monster hunter, kneels in the pooling blood, and casts the spell Revivify.
They bring the assassin back to life.
It's wild.
They use top-tier, incredibly expensive restorative magic, which requires diamonds to cast, by the way, to resurrect the person who was just trying to kill them.
It is a genius, albeit incredibly cynical, move of de-escalation. Let's look at the mechanics of Revivify. It reaches across the veil of death and yanks a soul back into its body, provided they haven't been dead longer than a minute.
So they caught it just in time.
They did. Siantal brings Syria back, gasping for air, immediately ties her up with rope, and yells up to the flying paladin and the hissing vampire on the roof to stand down. By removing the death, Siantal finds a legal loophole to remove the murder charge.
It's the ultimate legal technicality. It's like a defense attorney proving there's no murder weapon by eating the murder weapon.
Exactly.
Santal just Control-Alt-Deletes the entire moral crisis. They look up at Cirrus and basically say, look, she's breathing. If she's not dead, Violet didn't commit murder. If Violet didn't commit murder, you don't have to arrest her. So put your sword away and let's go to the party.
If we extrapolate on what this means for their group chemistry moving forward, it's deeply revealing.
They aren't exactly best friends right now.
No. This party is not a monolith of friendship and shared ideals. They are highly capable, incredibly dangerous individuals whose personal creeds will occasionally put them at each other's throats. But they are also intelligent enough, and perhaps desperate enough, to find mechanical, magical loopholes to force a ceasefire when necessary.
And amazingly, it works, mostly. Violet agrees to come down from the roofs, but she is furious. Her dress is ruined, her pride is wounded.
Well, she did just get smited.
Yeah. She demands a verbal amendment to their contract right then and there in the alley. She insists it be stated out loud in front of witnesses that she is now officially protected from Cirrus, as well as outside threats.
Which is a humiliating but necessary compromise for the Paladin to swallow. And just in time, too. The noise of the battle draws a member of the City Watch.
Ah, perfect timing.
The party quickly composes themselves and calmly hands the bound, resurrected, and very confused Syria over to the authorities. Lady Violet, showcasing the deceptive charm of a vampire, smoothly lies to the officer.
What does she say?
She explains that a group of crazed assassins attempted to end her life, but her loyal, noble bodyguards bravely repelled them.
The absolute audacity. With the blood literally and metaphorically mopped up, they have to put their polite faces back on, smooth down their cloaks, step into the highest echelons of Baldur's Gate society, and pretend they weren't just actively trying to murder each other 5 minutes ago.
It is quite the tonal shift.
Which brings us to the glittering gates of the Silver Shield Manor.
The transition from the grime and blood of the alleyway to the opulent chandeliers of the Silver Shield estate is intentionally jarring. The Silver Shields are one of the oldest, wealthiest, and most influential patriarch families in the city.
So this is old money.
Very old money. Their grand ballroom is packed with the absolute elite, politicians, guild leaders, nobility. This entire sequence of the campaign notes shifts from physical combat to social combat, heavily exploring the theme of passing in high society.
Right, because they do not belong here and they know it. They have to act the part. And Valessa runs into a massive, terrifying test of her ability to pass almost immediately.
Such a tense moment.
She is near the buffet table, trying to keep a low profile, and spots a drow woman. She approaches to make polite conversation, only to realize, with dawning horror, that she has just introduced herself to Minthara Bainra.
For listeners who might not know the deep lore of the Underdark, the Bainrai family is not just noble. They're the absolute, undisputed ruling house of Menzoberranzan, the subterranean city Valessa fled.
The ones in charge.
They control the priesthood of Lolth. They dictate who lives and who dies. Minthara is essentially a dark elf princess, a living embodiment of the society that oppressed, mutilated, and traumatized Valessa.
Just standing next to her would be enough to trigger a panic attack, but Valessa manages it.
She really holds it together.
She taps into every ounce of her willpower. She holds a polite, incredibly tense conversation with Minthara, politely excuses herself, and then practically runs back to her friends, visibly shaking. She whispers to them, "I just talked to the princess of my entire society and didn't piss myself."
That's a direct quote from the notes, actually.
It's a huge psychological victory for her. She survived the interaction without her trauma exposing her cover or causing her to break down.
It proves her resilience. But tragically, she doesn't survive the next social interaction quite as well. Siantal decides it is time to formally introduce the party to their hosts, the Silver Shield siblings, Antar IV and Elisara.
Right, time to mingle.
Siantal, ever the chameleon, uses very exaggerated, obsequious language to blend in. They are trying to play the part of a sycophantic, noble retainer perfectly.
And Valessa steps in to help charm them, riding the high of surviving Minthara. She compliments their striking eyes. She uses her best courtly manners. She's trying to play the high society game.
She's doing well
Until Elisara Silvershield's gaze drops down. And remember the biological reset we talked about earlier? How Valessa lost her mechanical leg and regrew a flesh one?
Yes.
Well, she hasn't had time, or perhaps the funds, to acquire a left shoe. So she came to this ultra-exclusive, impossibly wealthy patriarch ball, completely barefoot on one side.
When questioned by the estate guards earlier at the gate, she panicked and lied, claiming she was wearing invisible magical foot pads.
Which is such a transparent, terrible lie. And Alisara looks at her bare feet with absolute theatrical disgust. She doesn't just politely ignore it, she snubs them completely. She haughtily informs the party that the estate has a strict dress code, and that shoes are the bare minimum expected to avoid being confused with low city rabble. Then she just turns her back on them and resumes talking to her brother as if the party ceased to exist.
The irony of this encounter is profound. Look at what this party just survived.
They fought for their lives.
They fought a brutal, high-stakes death match on a foggy rooftop against elite hunters. They took blades and arrows, they suffered magical blasts, they debated the very nature of morality and life and death, and they walked away victorious.
And yet.
But it's the withering, condescending glare of a wealthy socialite noticing a lack of footwear that actually inflicts real emotional damage. Valessa, despite her immense magical power, her Dhampir resilience in everything she has overcome in her long life, is made to feel entirely small and worthless by a snob with a glass of champagne.
It's social combat, and they lost round one instantly. It just goes to show that sometimes words hurt more than swords.
They really do.
But while Valessa is dealing with being publicly foot-shamed, Santal is scanning the room, utilizing their keen eye for detail, and they spot something that turns this entire political drama into a straight-up paranoid horror movie.
This is the chilling climax of the evening, and it requires us to connect some very dark threads from earlier in the campaign.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Sansal observes Lady Elia Durenbold conversing with Duke Raketh Glitterbeard. Lady Durenbold is a known, influential member of the Parliament of Peers. She appears to be discussing a sizable financial deposit with the Duke.
Seems normal enough.
To anyone else in the room, she looks perfectly alive, perfectly normal, just another wealthy noble making a deal.
But Santal looks closer. Something is off. Lady Durenbold is avoiding direct eye contact. She seems weirdly preoccupied, staring into the middle distance.
Like she's distracted.
And then, for one brief, unsettling moment, the intricate family diadem she is wearing on her head flickers, like a magical glitch in a hologram, rendering the jewelry briefly transparent.
And the true horror is not the glitch. The true horror is that Siantal recognizes her face.
From where?
Not from a previous party, not from a portrait. They recognize her face from a previous mercenary job. We have to flash back to weeks ago. The party was investigating a dark, spreading blight in the river Chianthar. They tracked the source to the sewer keep.
I remember this.
The sewer keep is a massive subterranean civic facility where druids use giant plant creatures, specifically shambling mounds, to naturally filter the city's sewage.
Right, I remember this from the earlier notes. They met this halfling guild boss down there, Genemine Kapali. Her prized shambling mound, a massive beast named Bessie, was going crazy.
Bessie was sick.
It was sick. And the reason it was sick was because there was a corpse jammed inside one of the massive purification tanks that Bessie was trying to filter.
The party had to wade into the filth, drain the tank, and extract the body. It was a sensory nightmare. The corpse was waterlogged, bloated, and radiating incredibly potent necrotic energy.
Yeah.
The magical forensics determined the victim had been dead for 4 to 5 weeks, killed by a powerful curse. And Santal, enduring that sickening necrotic aura, examined the bloated body, cleaned off the muck, and identified it by one specific item.
The diadem.
That exact same iconic, intricate family diadem. The corpse rotting in the sewer was Lady Elia Durenbold.
Which means the woman currently standing across the ballroom, sipping expensive champagne, wearing fine silk clothes, and discussing vast financial movements with the Duke of the City, is wearing the exact face of a woman who is currently rotting in a secret mausoleum.
She is a perfect living imposter.
The implications of this discovery are absolutely staggering for the lore of Baldur's Gate. Let's extrapolate on what this actually means. If an imposter, whether it be a doppelganger, a shapeshifter, or something worse, can perfectly mimic a patriarch,
It changes everything.
think about the level of infiltration. They aren't just wearing her face. They are simulating her magical artifacts to the point of only a minor visual glitch. They possess the knowledge to manage her vast finances and political maneuverings with a duke without raising suspicion. They moved flawlessly through the highest magical and physical security in the city to get into this ball.
Exactly. The security at the Silver Shield Manor would include magical wards to detect illusions and undead. Yet this entity bypassed them all. Which begs the terrifying question.
Who else is fake?
If Lady Durenbold is a fake, who else in that glittering ballroom is wearing a stolen face?
That thought gives me chills. Is it the Wash Commander laughing by the fireplace? Is it the Duke himself? Is it the Silver Shields who just insulted Valessa's bare feet? It casts a shadow of profound paranoia over the entire evening.
It forces the party,
Yes.
and you as the listener, to completely reevaluate everything known about the power dynamics of Baldur's Gate. The city is not being attacked from the outside, it's been hollowed out from the inside.
It really puts their petty squabbles into perspective, doesn't it? They just risked their lives, broke their sacred paladin's oaths, and fought a bloody civil war in a dark alleyway to protect Lady Violet, just so they could get access to this exclusive, safe ball.
And the ball isn't safe at all.
No. The ball itself is infested. It's not a safe haven. It's a masquerade of monsters actively manipulating the city's highest power structures.
It perfectly demonstrates the core theme of this campaign. Every solution only unlocks a deeper, vastly more complex problem.
It's like peeling an onion.
Yeah, they perform a dark ritual to cure a parasite, but they create a starving vampire. They fight off an assassin to honor a contract, but they break their paladin's moral code. They survive the streets to make it to the safety of high society, only to discover that high society is a den of imposters.
Okay, let's pull all of this together and look at the massive scope of what we just covered. Think about the wild trajectory of the journey you've been on with us today.
It's been a ride.
We started in a cozy living room, dealing with traumatized teenage wards, summoning infernal imps just because they were told they couldn't go to a party.
Teenagers.
Right. We moved out into the freezing fog and found ourselves in a bloody, philosophical civil war in an alleyway over the strict ethics of executing surrendered prisoners and the pragmatic use of resurrection magic.
A heavy debate.
And we ended up sipping champagne in a grand ballroom, only to realize that the city's elite has been infiltrated by shape-shifting, face-stealing entities.
It is a stark reminder that in Baldur's Gate, the monsters rarely look like monsters.
The fairy tale script isn't just burning, it never existed here. The X-ray machine of morality is completely shattered. So I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to ponder on your own as you go about your day.
Something to mull over.
Think about the fog-drenched streets of the high city. In a place where a known blood-drinking vampire attends a ball in high fashion, where heroes will turn their divine blades on each other over a rigid point of honor, and where the smiling aristocrat sipping champagne next to you might actually be a rotting corpse hidden in the sewers. Who are the real monsters in Baldur's Gate?
It's a question.
And more importantly, if you were in their shoes, how much would you be willing to compromise your own morals just to stay on the guest list?
A chilling question to end on. The line between hero and villain is entirely dependent on who is writing the contract.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a mind-expanding, intense journey, and we're so glad you were here to unpack every messy, magical detail with us. Keep your eyes open, watch who you trust, and we'll see you next time in the shadows.